Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Phil's Recap and Review. This is for Picard, Season 1, Episode 2, Maps and Legends. And I'm here, Phil the Issues Guy, here to talk a little bit about Picard tonight, and also play a very special little video. But I'm here for a special reason. Well, I'm a little bit under the weather, and I think you shouldn't start off podcasts like that. Like, the first thing I'm going to say is, oh, I'm a little tired tonight. I'm not going to be on for too long. But it is the fact of nature. Oh, shut off, music. I don't want to listen to you right now. What am I doing? I'm flashing over here. Let me go over here. Here I am. That's what I'm looking for. I'm all mixed up a little bit. I'm feeling a bit under the weather. But I had to come out here tonight to talk about this episode before it got too late in the week, and I have to get into the habit of coming back out here on Sunday nights. I have to reclaim the Sunday night silliness. That's what I have to do. This is a little bit better. Welcome to everyone that pops on in or pops on out throughout or checks this out at a later date. I'd love to hear what you're thinking about Picard at this point. 2 episodes in, I'm still feeling this show a lot. The second episode didn't have any of the old Star Trek Next Generation nostalgia. It had a few moments that popped in, popped out throughout, but for the most part, it was establishing the new universe even more, seeing about the new Starfleet. I like the callback that we got to the Admiral that always had a problem with Picard, always had her hair across her ass about Picard, and Picard had hair across his ass. And then connecting more with that, we're starting to put together Picard's crew, learning more about the Romulans that are staying with him. And who knew that Romulans could have, very distinct accents, but certain ones do, whatever. I am still loving Picard 2 episodes in. Maybe a couple of things popped up in the second episode that I could dig into and be a little bit snuffing in my uppagus all over the place. But I'm going to hold out hope to see how the season goes and see where things end up before I make complete judgment on things. I think what's interesting with a show like this, or a show like The Mandalorian, for instance, which I did watch. A couple people asked me that in comments for the last episode of Picard. I did watch The Mandalorian. I very much enjoyed it for the most part. But I think in certain shows, and the way that the landscape of television is set up now, and Joe and I talk about a little bit about this in a video I'm going to play in a little bit. But it's so difficult to judge these episodes episode by episode in some ways, because it is a whole piece of entertainment. You're only seeing one glimpse. It's like reading a chapter of a book and doing a whole review, whereas in a different era of television, not too long ago, when shows had to do both, when you had a show that needed to establish something, so if you were watching it for the first time, you can still enjoy the episode as an episode, and also to carry on the storyline. And I think now on some of these shows that are released week to week even, this is what bothers me, and this isn't a bother thing. It's more of a spoiled little brat of television thing, like, I'm a whiny little motherfucker, me. I want it now, like, give me the world, I want it now. That kind of part of me gets pissed off with shows like this, because I'm used to the feeling of binging them. Something like, say, BoJack Horseman came out a couple of hours ago, and I watched the whole thing. I feel sad. I've been spending, maybe that's why I feel bad. Maybe that's why I'm not at the top of my game, because I watched the end of that BoJack Horseman series finale, and I feel all horrible about myself. It's probably the case. I think it can't be anything but that. But my only thing I'm bitching and moaning and I'm whinging about here that deserves no whinging, but I feel like just pulling something out of my ass at the moment right now, is the fact that because when something's released on this CBS All Access, if I'm going to pay for your goddamn fucking app, and I'm going to get this bitching out of the way because I'm paying for this shit, I'm part of the problem, right? But still, if I'm going to pay for your fucking CBS All Access, give me the drugs all at once. I don't want you to sit there with the drugs and go, here, we're going to give you this drug right here. We're going to give you this drug right here. And then we're going to give you this one when you're ready for it. No, I don't want that. And then we're going to stick a Romulan Borg up your ass when you're ready for that too. I don't want that. I want it now. And I just wish that this, and The Mandalorian for that matter, were released all at once. That's what I want. If I'm paying for your online streaming service, and every once in a while throughout the series of whether I'm talking about this or talking about Discovery or talking about the Orville when I get Hulu and that comes back. If these shows make the decision that are in these streaming services to make a choice to release each episode week to week, I'm just going to bitch about it. I don't care. It's going to be that my thing, your one thing, but that's my one thing that it's going to be okay for me. And I don't care. I mean, you guys might not think so, but it's going to be okay for me to bitch about that because I think it's fucked. That's true. That's true. Because I want it off. I'm going to pay for your stupid service. Slap all that television dick across my face. You know what I mean? Let's get into the live motherfucking chat for a second. And oh, yes, I'm not alone. I have with me the live motherfucking chat. We got some few folks popping on in here this evening. Maybe some others will pop on in throughout the evening. And if not, if you're joining us at any point in time when you're watching this, please jump in the live comment section, because it's always live. The comment section or the live chat. See, this is only my second podcast back, and I'm still out of practice. It's weird going from this kind of medium of talking to what I was doing before, and now I'm here, and I'm babbling, and I'm a mess, and oh golly, you guys don't want to hear about this shit. I just wait until all the episodes are released, then I binge watch. See, the real YT is smart about this. If I was talking about this to somebody the other day, when I forget what series they gave me you haven't watched that? And my response was, I'm saving some things. There's certain things I want to talk about, and I get it from the standpoint of what I do, or talking about these shows and babbling like a madman on crack here. It serves the better purpose for these episodes to be released one at a time so I can sit here and talk to you. But it's not my preference on the way I would watch something. If I wasn't at all ever wanting to talk like this, I'd probably wait to watch most things because I feel it's still fun to talk about a whole season after the fact, but when you're trying to recall a whole season's arc or a whole season story, it's easy to miss things. Joe and I talked about that a lot when we were talking about the Daredevil and some of the other Marvel Netflix series. The biggest problem with that from a standpoint of this is the way they were filmed, the way they were put together is one big story. So when you're trying to talk about episode to episode, it would probably be better because you can touch upon each issue, but when you're watching it, you don't want to wait even an hour to say, hey, wait a second, we got to pause and go do a podcast and come back. Because of the nature of the medium, you just want to jump right into the next episode. And I think that's an interesting aspect of these streaming services, and part of the drug of it is the ability to, for me anyways, and I'm only speaking for myself, to engulf a whole thing and just eat it, to eat the show. I'm a big motherfucker. I made brownies today. I like to eat. And so the real YT has the right situation here by waiting and then binging it. Did you? You got censored? That's not fucking cool. What the fuck? Make sure you're on what it is, live chat, not top chat. YouTube automatically censors you in the top fucking chat. I don't want any censoring going on here. That's not good. I'm not with it. I'm not with that. Okay, so a little back to Picard. People popping on here they've never checked this out before. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Another great episode of Picard. Patrick Stewart is killing it already in 2 episodes in. I like all the side characters. I like the actress that plays the Data's daughter character as well. I think she adds an interesting dynamic to the show. I like all the history and all the different things that we're finding out about the universe that's happened since the time of the JJ movie, but since the time of Nemesis. And this episode was not as bam, bam, bam as the first episode could have been. Again, it's another chapter in the book of this season, but I do feel like we're getting to where this season is going quickly. It is not a lot of subterfuge going on, and I think you can kind of point out the basis of this season, except for they're adding some mysteries with the Borg in the Romulan alliance situation, or not even alliance. The fact that the Romulans are on the Borg cube that is a science station studying and trying to bring back Borg drones and releasing them, so to speak. And How many times in one episode can one character say, "Oh yes, the this is perfectly safe. The Borg collective has been cut off. We don't think they can be reestablished. We know for a fact they're going to be reestablished. That cube is going to come alive. That some of the plot involves a Romulan thing." But I like it. I like these Romulans that we've established in this show. I think they're the one thing that I have a problem with to a certain extent, and I mentioned this a little bit in the discussion I have with Joe that I'm going to play in a moment. The villains that we've met so far are quote unquote bad guys. Just like in most Star Trek, I think the thing that Trek has had the biggest difficulty with throughout the years is establishing interesting villains that don't copy past successes that they have. I mean, I think if you look at all the movies, or you look at the shows it's a better examples of successes because you can have one-off arcs. But if we think about the longer arcs on the stories of the different shows and how that ties in, which was a question that we got in the comment section at some point, how the ends of these shows tie into the beginning of Picard. We haven't heard anything about the Cardassians yet, but the Romulan stuff is a big part. The end of Voyager plays a big part at the beginning of here with the Borg situation. And Deep Space Nine stuff hasn't really become evident. There's been no calls to the Dominion War quite yet. Or Sisko hasn't showed up to kick some Borg ass, which I'm hoping is going to happen at some point. Okay, but the villains haven't been great. You get the Borg, which were a very interesting established villain. You have the initial biggest villain on TNG, which was were the Klingons, even though the Romulans were there, but the Klingons were really the big villain as a counterbalance of the Cold War kind of thing going on there. But ultimately, the biggest villain from the original cast would probably be Khan, and from the episode and then the movie, and then a lot of other villains in Star Trek have tried to copy Khan or those scenes since, including Star Trek JJ Part 2 that basically gives you Khan again. Then you have the best Star Trek villain that you ever could have in Gul Dukat and the Dominion and all that, because I'm Deep Space Nine and I have to kiss its ass. And the Borg throughout, whether it be TNG or into Voyager, were a well-established villain. Voyager did deball them a little bit, but they came back in First Contact. But then that First Contact, the Xindi guys, they're just they're colossal douchebaggery of nothingness. Sauron from Generations is a fucking joke. Even Christopher Plummer in Star Trek 6, I have some issues with his performance in that movie, even though I love Star Trek 6. I just think villains in Star Trek have always been somewhat of a joke, with a few examples of the difference of to establish something different. And I think so far what I've seen, that we get our bad guys, our Vulcan or our Romulan plant as a Vulcan Starfleet officer. It's kind of a retread of another Starfleet stuff. Is this going to be another Section 31 thing that's going on? Or I don't know what's going to go on about that. And then we have Not Don Drapers. We have Poison Ivy from Gotham as some I don't know, operative of sorts that's going to kill Jean-Luc Picard. But no, Jean-Luc Picard's mine. That was my only section of the episode where I got a little, okay, so these are our bad guys. Our bad guys are the Borg. These are our pawns in the whole thing that they think, and the Borg's going to end up being the big issue we're going to have to face at the end. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to find out about that. And that's a small minor criticism that I have, but their scenes in counterbalance with some of the other stuff that we're having was a little bit funny to me. Okay. Let's see. Good KC. Hey, Bridge, I haven't watched it yet, so I got to avoid spoilers. Just wanted to say you rock, miss you. And I have seen others in the Teflon chat saying this. Oh, hope all is well. Everything is great, Bridge. Great to see you, Kev. And I can't wait to eventually, at some point, for some reason, get you on here for a fun discussion, and look forward to partying with you again relatively soon. It's great to see you, buddy, and great to see everybody that's popping on in here tonight. And thank you for all of our people that have liked this video so far. And if you're enjoying this and you haven't already, hit the like button at any point in time where you're watching this fucking thing. So, and we also get more of an establishing dynamic of at the beginning of the episode with the precursor to the Mars attack. Mars attack. Sorry. But without further ado, though, adieu to you and you and you, I'm going to pass this off to somebody else to have a little bit of a discussion here. I'll be back at the end for a little bit more, but for right now, let's pass this off to an old friend that hasn't got to say hi to you for a little while. And what's funny about this is we're going to go off to Joe and myself talking here. Whoa. Turn that shit off. Turn up the Looney Tunes fucking thing. There you go. We're going to get to Joe and me talking for a second. And I think at some point I say I'm not going to do a lot of talking, and then I think I do a lot of talking. So I'm just preparing you for that. But in fairness, I love Joe, and he's amazing. But I can't just say Joe talk. I got to actually talk to him. But this is Joe's thoughts on Picard, a little bit about this particular episode. Again, I want to break down this episode, go point for point about what happens in this, and I will after this brief discussion, after this half an hour discussion we have with Joe, and then I will pop back in here for a quick breakdown of all the things that happened in this particular episode and give some more of my thoughts. But there's not much. I don't want to micromanage this too much again. I'm enjoying Picard so far. I'm in. Are there things I could be a little nitpicky about? Of course. I mean, that's what I do, but I'd rather hold on to those things and see if they become habits, see if questions become answers, if things are set up for certain reasons, certain things I'm comfortable with because of the establishing dynamic of the Star Trek universe, and I understand that villains are certain kinds of villains in Star Trek, and that's what they have to be. And I also, there's so much I liked about what's going on in Picard so far, but no one wants to hear what I want to say. No one wants to hear what Phil wants to say. They want to hear what? What did Joe think? What did Joe think? Hey, Brian. Great to see you. Kevin, it's a tough question. I would say no. I would say Kevin's question was, is this the type of show you could pick up if you were not a big fan of Star Trek or you didn't really have a history built of the Next Generation stuff? You could to a certain dynamic, but it doesn't really hold your hand or guide you through the process of reminding you certain things. It almost expects you to have certain knowledge. So it would be difficult. You would at least have to watch SF Debris, a bunch of his videos or something, to catch up on certain elements of Star Trek and what's going on in certain elements leading up. At least Nemesis, just to watch a young Tom Hardy, a couple of episodes of Next Generation, and maybe a couple of episodes of Voyager, and maybe one or two recaps. I should have done one of those videos. If I wasn't as busy leading up to Picard, I probably should have done a podcast, everything you need to know leading up to Picard, or some shit like that. But maybe at some point I'll do something similar. A couple people have reached out to me recently to maybe do some fun Picard stuff. So hopefully I'll get some Star Trek friends over here to break stuff down a little bit more. But to answer your question, I'd love to say, yeah, sure, step in this water, it's nice. If you don't at least have a working knowledge of some of these things, it's going to be, oh yeah, Patrick Stewart's a great actor. This is some neat action here, but beyond that, in my opinion, it would not be as fun of a ride. Yeah, that's the ticket. So one more time. Where is it? I gotta shut the fuck up because no one wants to hear. No one wants to hear what I think. People want to hear what. What did Joe think? What did Joe think? What did Joe think? Was it good or did he really fucking say? What did Joe think? Okay, well, let's see if this works. I'm not going to be able to hear it, but I think you guys are going to be able to hear it. So I'll just have to keep an eye on when this is over. I'm gonna set a timer. because I know it's about 30 minutes. So let's play a game. Okay, Google. Wait, no, it didn't listen to me. You son of a bitch! Fucking computer. I'm sorry. Now let's see if I attack any of your phones. Set a timer for 31 minutes. Okay, your timer has been set. Okay, here we go. I'm a professional. Here. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Here's some Joe Dirty Locks. Tell me in the live chat if you can hear Joe and I talking. Thanks, Phil. Hi, this is Phil the Issues Guy, here with Joe Dirty Locks. This is our Sunday night stream, but Joe and I couldn't coordinate exactly to do this week's Picard review, but we will have Joe at one of the upcoming ones. But I wanted to get Joe's thoughts, and of course everyone wants to know what does Joe think. And it's been a long time since we had Joe on the show. I think the last time we had you on was around The Walking Dead.
It was.
and I think it broke you. I think Joe got broken due to The Walking Dead, but I wanted to get Joe on here to talk a little bit about the first 2 episodes of Picard and get his thoughts just to include it into the situation. So, Joe, first of all, how have you been doing since the last time you were on the show?
I'm okay. You might notice my face does not work the same as it did once. I'm still struggling to get rid of this Bell's palsy, but it'll eventually go away.
Yeah, and we couldn't keep you away from the show any longer. I figured I wanted to give you a little bit of break because you couldn't immediately go up there with your pretty face. You wanted to feel more comfortable in the situation. And Joe's like, "Get me the fuck out there."
Non-working face. I got some eyebrow movement back on the.
We're just gonna say that The Walking Dead broke Joe. I think we should go with that. I think that's
a full smile.
Yeah, that's Joe's full smile. Wait, my camera's not on. But that is Joe's full smile. But I'm not going to do much talking here because you guys that are watching this now are watching a whole fucking stupid podcast with me talking alone, and so we need this to interrupt it. But I did want to introduce Joe and ask Joe a couple of questions. First off, 2 episodes into Picard, what's your general opinion on the show?
Best show not on television.
Oh, really? So you're really,
or maybe on television too.
Whatever that will be on television at some point. So you're really enjoying the first 2 episodes.
Yes, I am.
Now, is there anything?
This one was a little bit more boring, so my excitement level dropped off. But
but
I'm all in.
Yeah,
at this point, I'm all fucking ended.
It's difficult to judge one of these kinds of seasons. I was talking a little bit about this on the last show, and I don't know if you agree. It's tougher than it used to be to kind of judge TV shows that are put out on these streaming platforms, even the ones that go week to week, like The Mandalorian or this. Because it's a whole story. The season is one single story, and these are all little parts where even in something like Game of Thrones, an episode can kind of exist onto itself. Picard, it can do that, but I feel it's kind of harder to judge this all episode by episode for me. Because, I'm enjoying the fuck out of it, too. It's just to get critical about some things that I don't have answers to, I have to give the season credit that I'll get those answers by the end.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the best Star Trek things that's ever been made.
Right. Okay.
That's where I'm putting my cards right now.
Do you watch Discovery?
Yes, I've watched it.
Now, is Discovery something you're hot on, cold on, or lukewarm for the most part?
It got better as I watched more. I'm excited for the next season.
Right. Okay. And so I think you're probably where I am with it in the sense that the beginning of the first season was crap. The end of the first season when Orca or whatever the Harry Potter guy came on, he kind of improved the season a little bit.
Yeah.
And the second season was hit or miss, but Pike and all the Enterprise shit was awesome.
Yep.
So, but this show is would you agree that this show is kind of like a quality step above that?
Yes.
Yeah, this is amazing.
It's seeming that way at the moment.
Right. But are there any concerns that have been arisen in your pants? Are there any concerns in these first two episodes that you have? Any negatives? Because I maybe have one little one. No. Okay.
Well, do you mean negative possible outcome for shit they're fucking with?
No.
Or just you didn't like the way that. Okay, I don't like the intro music, but like,
Okay, I'm not.
that shit happens. I don't have to watch that.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily talking about that.
Okay.
I'll get into it in a second. Okay, so first off, Patrick Stewart, there's not much bad you can say about him. In these first 2 episodes, we learn a lot more about how he lost his connection with Starfleet, and you've watched all of Next Generation. I feel like that has been well littered. I like how in this second episode that admiral that he had several dealings with throughout the years on Next Generation and always fucked with him again. I like those associations. I like how they actually mention Worf, Geordi, and Riker about why don't you just use that crew, and he gives a reasonable explanation on why not. So I like that. I love the Romulans that he lives with. I think they're really awesome characters, and for the most part, I generally like all of the new characters that we've been introduced to. I don't know if you feel the same. Like when shows like this, similar to Cobra Kai, for instance, where we have
that is the second best show on television.
Right. And it's funny that in some ways, Joe, they're similar shows, not in the way that they dictated, but in the way that they're rebooting in a way.
They're a 25-year-old sequel.
Right, exactly. I was going to say, no, I said reboot, but in a way, it's a
spin-off.
It's a spin-off. It's a continuation many years later, and I generally enjoy these kind of things way more than hard reboots.
If it's done right.
Yeah,
and these two
have done very well with that. And I think it's interesting, and I think where both shows capture something special is that I generally like all of the new characters that we've met on both those shows. I like that new doctor, the geneticist. I'm blanking on the actress's name. I thought she was really awesome in her 2 appearances in in last episode and this episode when she comes to Picard's house. We got that fucking actor from City Slickers, Mr. Saturday Night, and Quiz Show, and a million other things. He playing Picard's doctor from the Stargazer, which is informing and making old things better, because we never really got to see anything from the Stargazer or any other people that were on it, is in my memory. How do you feel about this show not just sequelizing or going past what we got on Nemesis in the original timeline of those series? They actually go to the JJ movies as well, in that the Romulan incident, Thanks, Phil. Hi, this is Phil the Issues Guy, here with Joe Dirty Locks. This is our Sunday night stream, but Joe and I couldn't coordinate exactly to do this week's Picard review, but we will have Joe at one of the upcoming ones. But I wanted to get Joe's thoughts, and of course everyone wants to know what does Joe think. And it's been a long time since we had Joe on the show. I think the last time we had you on was around The Walking Dead.
It was.
and I think it broke you. I think Joe got broken due to The Walking Dead, but I wanted to get Joe on here to talk a little bit about the first 2 episodes of Picard and get his thoughts, just to include it into the situation. So, Joe, first of all, how have you been doing since the last time you were on the show?
I'm okay. You might notice my face does not work the same as it did once. I'm still struggling to get rid of this Bell's palsy, but it'll eventually go away.
Yeah, and we couldn't keep you away from the show any longer. I figured I wanted to give you a little bit of break because Do you know what just happened? Somehow the video of Joe talking got reset. So at one of the upcoming ones, but I want to get Joe's thoughts. Unfortunately, and of course everyone wants to know what does Joe think. And it's been a long time since we had Joe on the show. I think the last time we had you on was around The Walking Dead. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear the whole thing again. And I think it broke you. So why don't I do this? Why don't I Joe got Joe in the background now. Why don't I recap the episode and then get back to Joe in a second. Here we go. So this is a recap, everybody. Maps and Legends opens up with a flashback 14 years before Picard's main action. Now, it's that first contact day on Mars at the Utopia Planitia shipyards. A group of human workers joke around with the new androids. And it's interesting seeing the interaction with these new androids. They're all ball-headed synthetics. And then eventually we see one of them have whatever malfunctions within them. It's something that goes on in their eye. Something obviously takes over within them. And they get the shipyards attacked and destroyed. And we've already established early on what happened there in Mars, and I like that they keep going back to this event so we get more history behind what occurred, which to me seems like it must be some Borg interaction, some nano Borg technology that infected them, that somehow used a controlling element. It seems similar to times we've seen data controlled by other elements, and I wonder if it is something similar. Yeah, it got all messed up. I threw it on. I clicked on it. Yeah, did you see me click off of it for a second? Something about clicking off of it restarted the video, and it's a fucking mess. So let's go back and see if see where we're at though. To kind of judge TV shows that are put out on these streaming platforms.
He's thinking.
Even the ones that go week to week. We gotta check back in over there in a moment. I don't know, and then I have a timer for 30 minutes going on, and that doesn't count anymore. I'm a big mess tonight. I'm a mess. If you're tuning into this program, you're tuning into the Disaster Podcast. Welcome. This is the good times. As I work off the rust of being gone for a couple months. Oh my goodness. Life can be a mess sometimes, and that's what I love so much about this podcast and so much about getting to interact with you guys. We try to simulate a hangout experience more than anything here. And sometimes life can be messy. So let's continue. Come on, video. I'm monitoring your ass over here. Okay, so then but I like how they keep going back to that time, going back to the the Mars attack, so we can see more of that situation, and that's one of the things I'm most curious to see how that all gets explained. So after all of that, having now seen this Mars calamity that led to the ban on synthetics, we go back to Chateau Picard, where Picard, Laris, and Zyban, whatever his name is, watch the video of what happened to our Data's daughter of last week. And we get this whole recreation Batman Arkham City detective mode thing going on with the Romulans, which now I think we've established in this episode that they are Tal Shiar, or that she is the daughter of one of the directors of the Tal Shiar. And then we get this, that within the Tal Shiar there's a other organization that was even more clandestine, and because everything Romulan could be secret, you could use it as a precursor to almost every Romulan. The Romulan secret volleyball team. No matter what you talk about the Romulans, something's secret. Romulans don't like things being out in the open. They like playing games, and again, not games like volleyball. Games within volleyball. They're playing mind games. They're talking to you. They want to make you think like the teammate next to you doesn't trust you. There always has to be a scheme going on with the Romulans, and I like it. So we get a little bit more of that. So it's obvious to think that within the Romulan Tal Shiar that there could be a sub-organization, the Zat Vash, or whatever the hell they're called, Vash, because we got to have Vash come back sometime and have some Ferengi Umaks or something with Picard, because Picard likes the Umaks, but on his head instead of his ears. So it's not Umaks, it's Headmoks. I don't know. They can't all be winners, like I said. As As Rangers in the live chat says, life can be a mess sometimes. Life can be a mess, sweetheart. Scoobity-doo boop. So scuba-doobity-doo-doo. Okay. Doo-doo. No, wrong one. Doo-doo. That's better. See, I'm not even pushing the right button to do my stupid effects. Scoobity-doo bop ba-doo ba-doo bop. Oh, God. Okay, so let's check in. How's Joe doing? You guys tell me. Anyone that's been watching this, tell me, are we caught up to where Joe and I were before? Let's see. Oh no, that's not the right button. That's the wrong button. What's wrong with that fucking actor from City Slickers, Mr. Saturday Night, and Quiz Show, and a million other things. He playing Picard's doctor from the Stargazer, which is informing and making old things better, because we never really got to see anything from the Stargazer or any other people that were on it, is in my memory. How do you feel about this show not just sequelizing or going past what we got on Nemesis in the original
It's good enough
timeline of those episodes?
I'll be back in a little
series. They actually go to the JJ movies as well, in that the Romulan incident, the Romulus blowing up the supernova sun, I believe it was, or was it a moon? I don't know. No, it's a sun. A moon's not going supernova. But whatever happened with that, so to me it makes the JJ movies better as well. Does that bother you at all that they're keeping that as quote unquote canon in this universe, or do you like how that's been done, dealing with the JJ aspect of it all?
See, I don't mind that. I don't mind any of it. As far as I'm concerned, anything that happens after Deep Space Nine to now, right, to Picard, we haven't gotten anything from.
Besides, right? I mean, Voyager. You're ignoring
Voyager. Yes.
You're ignoring Voyager, and then the Next Generation movies.
Right, but that's still kind of around Deep Space Nine time, right?
Right, for the most part. The last thing that we got was Nemesis, which is set several years after Voyager returns. So that's the last actual thing that we saw, which is why Data's death gets dealt with in a really insane way.
So what you have is anything goes from that point on, not necessarily the J.J. Abrams thing, but like its own thing.
Right.
They've decided that they like that, the Romulan.
Right, and they're keeping that.
And that they're going to do that in this as well, maybe differently, maybe with different circumstances involved and surrounding and things like that. You can't overlook the nostalgia factor. What Karate Kid, Cobra Kai, Koala Kai does so fucking well, and what this is, in my opinion, doing so well, is it ties in our generation, right? It brings all the old super fans back. All the casual fans will check it out and maybe even be excited for it and maybe even really fucking like it. Mm-hmm. And along with that, we're now all at the age where we have families of our own, shit, maybe kids and things like that. And hopefully we're going to bring them along, and we're going to bring them along to see these new stories and be excited and have them get excited.
Yeah.
I think they do a great job bringing in new audience and recapturing their old audience with the new stories.
And I would agree with you 100%. The member berries on this show are very well delivered. They taste delicious, but they're not in your face to sacrifice what's going on in the storyline. And in fact, in this episode alone, you spent a lot more time. You spent almost equal amount of time with Data's daughter number 2. I forgot her name. And the Romulan sexy pants, and that other character on the Borg cube, and seeing more about that. I like how we're getting more details about how this is a cube that has been decontrolled from the collective. And okay, these are the few things I have problems with. Aren't really problems. They're just, I can see them calling their shot in some situations where this Borg ship has been cut off from the collective. These will never come back alive. Who do you think controlled the synthetics?
Right, come on.
The Romulans, you know, it's not just the Romulans. Romulans didn't hack into these synthetics. There's some Borg nonsense going on. We know Jerry Ryan shows up. We know Seven of Nine comes here, which is all about her coming back from being a Borg.
Yeah.
There's going to be some Borg
stuff. I know
stuff.
someone else who,
who came back. Yes. Yeah.
The dude believes that this is all about Hugh here.
Yeah, and Hugh's coming back as well too.
Borg ship to begin with, or
I was talking to him about that. And we know Hugh is in it because he was in the trailer. So there is going to be a Borg element that obviously they're going to be controlled again. The only problem I have with it coming forward in this episode is when we get into our much mustache twirling bad guys in Starfleet. It's something we've done before, and this is something that's worth mentioning in Star Trek. Star Trek is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite franchise, one of my favorite franchises. I can speak to its warts. I can speak to what it has never been great at. Developing a good villain is something that it's done minimally. The original Khan, the Gul Dukat from Deep Space Nine, the Borg in general as an enemy, but then they deballed them on Voyager, but that's a different story altogether. But lore, maybe you could argue from Data's standpoint. But for the most part, even in the movies and all the stuff that has happened on the shows, enemies have always been a little cookie cutter on Star Trek. Even in my favorite Star Trek original cast movie, or one of my favorites besides Wrath of Khan, Star Trek VI, where you have this very stereotypical, it's the one where the quest for peace, where there's a big ship battle, and you have this Klingon with an eye patch, and I know it's Christopher Plummer, and I know he's a great actor, but he's delivering these in the can Shakespearean lines to try to match up to what Khan did, and it's just Star Trek's been a lot about not really developing unique, interesting villains. Besides Gul Dukat on Deep Space Nine. Yes, I'm a Deep Space Nine fanboy, and like on Voyager, species 7586712, the numbers, like characters like that were interesting one-offs, or sometimes we saw it. But for the most part, I don't know if you'd agree with that, Joe. Villains on Star Trek it's not their strong suit.
It's tough because you always have to have your Enterprise or Deep Space Nine or whatever the fucking ship is, right? Yeah, it always has to win, does it not?
Yeah, I mean,
like, to have an enemy that is going to be this, encompassing kind of fucking thing, you already know they've lost.
Yep.
They've lost. It doesn't matter. They're not gonna beat Kirk, Picard, Pike, fucking. Well, they might be. They're going to beat Pike.
Pike's going down. Pike's going down soon. That's happening soon.
They're not going to be able to create something that is going to feel all that menacing so often, because you know going into it. And now, one of the things that is great about the first episode is, like, they blow up your fucking your girl.
Yeah, they do not hesitate.
Like, oh, where's the fuck is this going from here? They just blew up the chick, like.
Yeah, and
they find the Picard.
Yeah, especially
the Picard, save the universe. Oh shit, she's dead.
And I like her as an actress. I think she's done a very good job so far in that role. And I think the forgotten about android that people don't remember about, that I think is a secret to this situation, is when Data, I think it's the last season, Data meets his mother, so to speak, in one episode of Star Trek, and it's Noonien Sung's wife that has left him, but she actually died when he escaped from the crystalline entity. So he created an android that completely passed as human, that symbolizes his wife, and was so individualistic that she left him. So the android version of his wife that he made left him and ended up remarrying, and finally the Enterprise discovered them and had an aging subprocessor that would be triggered at a certain point to self-destruct to give her even a lifespan. So that has been a dynamic that has been established. For anyone that's saying flesh and blood, passable, blah blah blah, that's a long thing to go. That was established on Next Generation as well.
Already there. Yep.
And to your point, Joe, about the villains, I think that's what makes the Borg, when they first showed up, such an interesting enemy. Not when they first showed up, because when they first showed up, it was just Q going, "Here's the Borg, bye." But when they showed up and they assimilated Picard in that Best of Both Worlds season finale that gave us that cliffhanger that you actually for a second had to worry, is Picard going to make it out of this? Is Riker going to blow up this ship and Picard's going to die right now?
And then Riker will be the new
captain of the Enterprise.
Survive that?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Exactly. At that point, they had established enough that you could have imagined a situation where they killed Picard off in that moment, or made him just the enemy for a whole season. And the other show that did it exceptionally well was Deep Space Nine. And again, I'll always lick Deep Space Nine's bumhole, but
he wasn't a true villain either, and he
starts
off his
come on
in the Next Generation.
He's not the same character there, but he's
Gul Dukat. They call him
Gul Dukat. No, he's a different Gul. He's a different Gul. We can go back and watch that episode right now.
I'm pretty sure Katie and I
he's a different Gul.
Just watched that episode.
He's a different. You go. It's Dukat, but he's a different Gul's name. But okay, no. First of all, that's a different story altogether. We'll do a whole podcast on Gul Dukat one day. And now that we're talking Star Trek again, I wasn't just talking about
the enemy. The true villain in that
is the Dominion. Right. I wasn't just talking about Dukat. I was talking about that point where we are in the Deep Space Nine spoiler. If you're watching this late, you haven't seen it, but here's a Deep Space Nine spoiler: when they take over the station, when there's at one point in the middle of the season when the Dominion and Dukat retake the station, and all of our good guys are cast away, except some of them are forced to be there to kind of played by the rules of the enemy. I think that was a very interesting thing in a big moment to do to show us that. What I want Picard to do, and I think it already did in that first episode, to bring this back into Picard, when you mentioned this, Joe, was killing that girl in that first episode before we found out she was a twin, not establishing that ahead of time. I know it's a little bit of a, see, they're twins, but they've done that before with Data and Lore, and they've had that they've established that to a certain extent. So I guess you can play that game if you want.
And they put the clues there,
Yeah, exactly, with the two necklaces and stuff. Like I get it. You can kind of do that, and I accept it, Joe. I accept you. But okay, I don't want to break down this episode too much because I'm going to be doing this on the podcast that's leading up to this point, point for point. But
awesome, dude.
But it was fucking awesome. I think I liked episode 2 better than episode 1, even though I really liked episode 1.
Dude, it's getting better. Here's the thing. I haven't been excited for a show to premiere since season 2 of Game of Thrones, right? And since then, everything that I've kind of been excited for has kind of really sucked. And even before that, it's kind of really sucked. A couple of things pretty good. A couple things, right? But ultimately, this held up to my expectations. This is the best show right now, as far as I gotta hold out. But 2 episodes in, I'm still excited. I cannot wait to finish watching this. Fuck CBS in there sticking to this fucking 1 episode of, they have content to kind of do it at the moment to keep people interested for months.
Okay, that's a question.
Series.
That's my question to you.
Now you're talking about now you're making me pay for just a regular fucking cable.
Yeah. Okay, Joe, that's my question for you. That's one of my to tread on this, because we can't talk too much about this season. I think one thing I want to say just about this episode, I love how littered this was with those short treks and the Children of Mars, and then getting more details of that in this episode. Have you watched the short treks? I know that answer because I
did not watch the fucking
fuck those.
The two stupid.
You watched Children of Mars, right? That's the only one I care about. That was Yep, and it isn't just one of those things that exists and doesn't connect. We actually get a follow-up to that in this episode, which I thought was a very interesting, fun scene.
It's Admiral Picard. Oh, you little twat. You arrogant fuck.
Yeah. And then the whole intro with seeing the android destroy everyone on Mars and seeing the beginning of that whole situation. Just very well done, very well layered. Every answer that we've wanted to get. And I like the future tech that we're finally seeing in this world. But I don't know. I can't really say anything poor about it other than I didn't necessarily love...
Thank you for saying that. That's one of the things I'm very excited about. Okay, two things I'm very excited about also with this series. One, all the future tech we get to fucking see, because up until now, all the other fucking series, uh, Voyager and Deep Space Nine,
Same
those are
timeline.
the same timeline, same time, right? But everything fucking else is in the fucking past.
Yep.
Right up into the new fucking movies. All those new movies, that's all the past.
Yep.
It's a future for us, but it's the past for how far Trek
Yeah,
has gotten.
it's past our Star Trek stuff.
All this is new. There's no rewriting of shit. Anything they want, they can just fucking do, because it's the future. It's the future of the fucking future, where there was already such futuristic shit that it was fucking incredible. The second thing I'm excited for is, I'm not sure exactly when this started, but I think Discovery was doing it, and I don't know if the movies fucking did it, but this show is using fucking laser fire, like real fucking lasers for a change. Rather than like when you fucking turn on a laser, it's one big long beam that stretches to the fucking end of the room. You don't see it stretch to the fucking end of the room. You just hit it and it's fucking there, the whole fucking thing. And when you let go, the whole fucking thing disappears all at once. You don't see the end of it go to the fucking wall. It's just gone. It's a fucking laser. You turn on a light, the whole room fills with light. You don't watch the room fills with light. There's no light, then there's fucking light. That's how lasers work. Star Wars has it completely wrong, but they can get away with it because they call that shit fucking blasters.
Yeah, blasters. Yeah, blasters.
But
and it's not really science fiction.
And it's fucking been a pee in my fucking bonnet forever, and now I don't have to do that because they changed up that shit. They finally said, let's fucking do the physics right. Like who?
Fucking NASA. I knew you were gonna say it. So yeah, on that note, I guess
then they steal from Fab 5. Yahoo!
Oh, you bastard. I knew it was coming somewhere. Wait.
Oh, that's gonna be exciting.
So everyone, that's what Joe thought so far on Picard. I mean, we could sit here and talk this whole time and talk another hour about this episode, but we'll get Joe down on one of these podcasts hopefully next week as we're getting more into this season, and of course we'll be back with even more silliness along the way. We have to catch up and talk about this past season of The Walking Dead. I want to both of us, if you're willing, at some point binge watch the 10 episodes of Vikings this half a season, so we can talk about this half a season leading into the last half of Vikings. I've heard, I haven't watched a single episode of this half a season of Vikings, but all I hear is good things, Joe.
Yeah, they brought in some Russians or some shit.
I don't know. No. I hear even you might enjoy it, is what I've heard. I've got a couple of best.
No. I might. I was talking to someone at work this was like literally this morning, and a Russian guy, and he says, I really love Vikings, and thick Russian accent, and then he started talking about some fucking Russians that are in this season, and like he's loving this season.
Yeah. No, I've heard from several people that Vikings is back to form this season. So and we got February.
They killed off Ivar and they brought back Ragnar.
I know. I think Ivar might.
That's back to
Joe,
form.
I think Ivar might still be there. And then we have, of course, The Walking Dead coming back, which we'll try to touch in on that when that comes back as well, because we
cannot wait.
We have to torture Joe on that, and they
be so good.
Negan's gonna be,
coming out for us.
Negan's gonna be awesome this season, because finally you see the creators. Do you see all the press patrol that's out in every article? It's like, show admits that might have lost ratings because Negan arc was a little too depressing. That's what lost viewers, because
that's the reason.
That's the reason. Is that what you're telling yourselves?
Yeah. Not that they left Negan alive and killed off everybody fucking else.
Or not that
that
everything just didn't make any sense. No, it was the tone. It was definitely the tone, Joe. That really brought down the mood. Dude, the rug really brought.
Everybody's so bummed because Negan's a prisoner.
I know.
That's why nobody's watching.
And now Negan is going to be a whisperer, and it's going to be amazing. I cannot wait for this. Cannot wait for the Rick Grimes final season. We also have Westworld coming up pretty soon with Aaron Paul this season. I'm going to be watching that. Maybe we can get Joe to make fun of me a couple times along that season. In February, we got Better Call Saul coming as well, Joe. Finally, the second to last season. We officially found out that this will not be the last season of Better Call Saul. There'll be one more after this. They've announced a season 6.
I think they had to come out with that El Camino. It wasn't just for fucking Breaking Bad fans. That shit was for Better Call Saul fans.
It was for everybody.
That shit was to bring it. Nope, there's going to be some more tie-in to that. That's why that exists.
Very interesting. We got to see if that ends up being a thing. But Joe, thank you so much for joining me today. And I told you I'd keep you for 10 minutes, 26. That works. I will talk to you. I'll talk to you soon. And everybody, thank you so much. And Phil, back to Phil. He's such a douchebag, that Phil guy. Fuck him, right?
Dude, he was in this fucking play.
Oh, he was fucking awful, dude.
Lead fucking role, dude.
Sword fighting, acting like an asshole.
Saw talent in him.
That boy's got no talent. Okay.
No, man, that show was good. And it was.
Oh, no, we'll talk about that
night. It was pretty full that night, dude.
I know you have some on your phone, and Stephanie has some too. So we're gonna.
I do not, dude.
Oh, I thought you.
Somehow I got about 30 seconds, and then it freezes, and it won't play any of it beforehand or after that.
Well, there is a video that exists that Stephanie took on her phone of the sword fight, so we'll at least be able to watch that at some point. And next podcast when we do live, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But everyone.
And then Phil and I are gonna recreate it with my long claw.
Oh, I have the one and I have the one at home. I actually do want to get some. Well, we'll talk about this later. I want to get some foils. Okay, I'll
No, dude. Broadswords.
Oh, fuck you! I'm not as.
I'll use my axe. You can use the sword.
Yeah, I'll be a fucking water dancer. You could be fucking a slow ass Viking
I'll
asshole.
be Ragnar.
Yeah, and I'll be Serial Pharrell dancing around you. Okay, Serial Pharrell versus
my axe to my club.
Serial Pharrell at his best versus Ragnar at his best in a one-on-one competition.
Dude, I'm going with Ragnar.
Ragnar wouldn't be able to catch Serial.
Are you kidding me?
He'd be like
Ragnar's not wearing armor.
He'd be like that.
Not wearing armor. You got to remember, Ragnar's a lightweight warrior.
Still though, he's not even close as fast and skilled as. I don't know about that. He's gonna be like Toucan Sam trying to get his cereal.
No. He's not. I'm not giving it to Ragnar. Don't get me wrong. I'm not giving that shit to Ragnar or Serial Pharrell. But I'm saying Ragnar is a lightweight, which is
I hear
the
you.
advantage Serial has over the armor.
But he's still by nature as a Viking warrior probably kind of brute force rather than skill. And I think someone as skilled and as talented as the first sword of Braavos would be able to maneuver easily in a one-on-one battle against a single Viking.
It's possible, yes, but there's a lot of that brute force going into
one hit. I agree. It's a one hit and you're done kind of situation. But I just don't see him even catch.
There's also a level of brutality that exists
if he can get his hands on him. If he can get his hands on him. Again, this is Vikings.
See, but that's just it. It's not going to be just a sword or an axe. He will absolutely be able to get his hands on them.
Maybe. My whole thing in this situation, or where I'm clinging to in this argument right now, is that Vikings in general, even Ragnar, we've seen him on one-on-one situations on occasion, but always with someone slower than him.
Yeah.
For the most part, we haven't seen him against quicker people, and for the most part, Vikings attack in hordes. They zerg a little bit more, where Serial has more experience in a one-on-one battle.
Correct, but here's also the thing: when you sword fight or brawl fight or any of that shit, what the movies tell you is one thing, but what really goes on is a couple of whacks here and there, and then once one person is close enough, like the sword becomes not as powerful of a weapon at that point, especially specific types of swords, like a foil maybe. It can devolve into a fist fight and bash your head off the fucking concrete real goddamn quick. You know what I'm saying?
Very true. Very true. I just think that Ragnar would charge him and then Serial would stab him through the neck before Ragnar had a chance to do anything else.
I couldn't see that necessarily.
I think we treaded on a different podcast that we have.
Yeah, this is like they have this show, don't they have this show?
Yeah, but we could do it funnier, and then we could have the audience vote on it at the end.
I like, didn't they? Oh, dude, that show in the '90s was fucking awesome. The claymation fight one
was the one. Oh, what were you talking about?
Celebrities. They put the
celebrity death match, and yeah, there's rumor that might be coming back. Celebrity death match with the claymation versions of the celebrities.
Yeah, that was fucking fun.
Vanilla Ice versus Danny Bonaducci. You know, shit like that. Yeah.
They could do yeah.
RoboCop versus the Terminator.
Ruth.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And then there was that show on, I think it was Animal Planet, where they do like Velociraptors don't exist, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex versus a lion or something, and then they create digital versions of both of them and see how that fight would go.
I want to see a grizzly versus a silverback.
I think that might exist somewhere. I definitely think I've seen.
IRL, dude.
Well, you almost see it. No, this way, no real animals get hurt, dude.
No, dude, fuck that. The real thing. Throw them in a fucking ring together. Get the fucking Coliseum going. This shit, yo.
The balls are taken out of it if we don't have any dead animals. Is that what you're saying, Joe?
Yeah, dude.
Well, I think we should.
Afterwards, we'll make it legal.
Yeah, crunch all you want, they make more. Well, okay, so. On that note, everyone, talk to you next time. Okay. Sorry for the slight delay. I'm back, everybody. And going to be on here for a little while longer, going through a little bit more of this episode. But thank you so much for checking this podcast out. That's I mainly said everything I have to say about this episode. I agree with what Carmine said when he popped in here for a second. It was a slower episode compared to the first one. I don't mind that, especially when we're dealing with next generation stuff and we're dealing with a longer arc. That's why it's tough looking at these episodes episode by episode with too much, at least for me, of a magnifying glass. And because when you binge watch a show like this, an episode like this episode 2, you remember elements of it, but it's more not on a specific level. You remember those high points of the season and the conclusion point. Okay, so the episode after we see the whole Mars situation, we see the Death Squad, and we hear more about the secret Tal Shiar organization. Then we go with Picard and Laris into the apartment, and we see a recreation of the murder of Dahj's boyfriend, and then we flash to space into our Borg cube, and we learn more about Narek, who right from the beginning you kind of knew something was up with him, but we've come to see that he is our bad guy on the inside who knows exactly where this android is and is following her indirectly for the Vulcan that's in Starfleet, and I don't even know I forget her name. We'll get to it later. But when we meet Poison Ivy, we're going to call her Poison Ivy for now. the operative at the end here. So we get to hear a lot more about the Borg cube, as I mentioned earlier, and learn that it's offline, it's been cut off, and there's nothing to worry about here. But we do get a couple of foreshadowing moments that are obviously going to depict the Borg coming back in full fucking force. Then we get back in Picard's vineyard, where we get visited by his doctor, David Palmer, from the Stargazer, and we find out that the condition that we learned about in the final episode of Star Trek Next Generation, All Good Things, that Beverly found in him that manifested itself in a future timeline in a different way, but wouldn't manifest every single time, is going to happen to him in this particular universe. He tells him that he's in great shape for all sorts of reasons. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, so you may want to look away. I muted it so you didn't have to hear it, but I bet it looked weird. There might be a second one coming. I sneeze in pairs. So if it comes again, then it might even be... It's probably a very awkward look. I probably shouldn't have turned the sound off. It made it more awkward. Or could it be more awkward than I am tonight? I don't know if that's possible. So, basically, Picard needs to get... This all ends up being much ado about nothing because eventually Picard gets told he can't go into space by the Admiral. She won't give him a ship, but this is for his medical records to try to get back into Starfleet. And we find out that the abnormality in his brain is going to manifest into one of many diseases that basically don't have good outlooks, and no matter what, he's going to end up dead soon. So he convinces his doctor friend to say you can go into space because it's better to die out in the darkness, out in the cold, than to die alone in his house. Which I get, and there's some very emotional moments here in this discussion. Two very good actors working back and forth. Apulia, great to see you in the live motherfucking chat. Peter Griffin, great to see you as well, buddy. And yes, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on their Super Bowl win tonight. And congratulations to Jason Momoa for a funny-ass commercial this evening. Way to go. Khal Drogo. Okay, so... he wants to go out there knowing he's going to die and go on one last mission. So let fucking Picard go on one last mission. So Picard beams to Starfleet. We get a little funny scene with him introducing himself, and he goes up and he talks to Admiral Clancy, who we've seen on Next Generation before, and in a few situations, I believe she's definitely involved in the Measure of a Man episode, but she's always been kind of a hard ass with Picard and really calls him on his ship. Picard comes in there, he's like, give me a ship, I'm fine. If I need to be demoted for captain, I'm fine. And she's like, I saw you on television, asshole. What the flying fuck burger you think you are? You're an arrogant piece of shit. The fucking hubris on you, Picard. Shove it up your fucking ass. Picard's like, oh, the Romulans, this is the plan, this is the scheme, this is this is that. She's like, listen, Picard, I don't give a fuck. Every time I start talking about boxing, Picard has to come out here and start talking about Romulans. Fucking, that's their one. That's everything. So Picard pisses her off. She kicks him out, and he leaves all frumpy and angry. Now back on the Borg ship, we get a chat with a new doctor who they talk about hot Romulans and how she's scared, which is basically just an exposition dump to hear all about what's going on in this Borg situation. And they call these Borgs the Nameless, as they're and they're basically removing the cybernetic parts, releasing... This is the part I don't understand. Are they bringing them back 100%, or are they just releasing them, allowing their bodies to die? I'm not too sure. I'd have to rewatch it to follow it a little bit more closely. But basically, it's a science team that's going in there, and they're studying how the Borg collective, when they take drones, how that affects the bodies, and cutting out the cybernetics, and there's a whole bunch of sort of shit going on there. And it's pretty cool. I kind of like that. I like seeing what's going on in this situation. As I mentioned a couple of times, as I am coughing, I'm sneezing, I'm a fucking mess. As I mentioned a couple of times, I definitely like that we're getting more of this information about the Borg, but it does seem, and I'm not going to say Chekhov's gun situation, Chekhov's Borg here, because it's not going, I don't even know the correct expression for what's going to happen, except for saying they're calling their shots a lot about saying how, there's no problem. And this could be a season 2 thing. They could get through this whole situation, and at the end of the season, this Borg cube reactivates somehow. But I don't know. I'm a little dubious of all of this shit. Okay, so then we go back to Chateau Picard. Picard finds the doctor from last week going through an Isaac Asimov book, And he remarks that she has a taste for the classics, but confesses that he never likes science fiction. Ha ha ha, get it? Okay, so they drink some Earl Grey tea hot, and they talk about how more stuff about Maddox, and they need to go on a mission. I'm not going to say spoilers, but if you see previews, if you've seen any of the previews for the season, you know that this character is going to keep coming back. So let's guess if she ends up as one of Picard's crew or something like that. So Clancy reports her meeting with Picard to a Starfleet commander. And this is where we get our Vulcan who says, if Romulans were running secret operations, I would know about it. I am obviously not guilty while I'm talking exceptionally guilty. And then she calls in her main operative, Rizzo's like, if you didn't bumble things up by killing that girl. This is the part that I was a little whatever on. It's a little by the books bad guy stuff, but it's to be expected in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. And essentially what Picard is a stretched out 2-part episode of Next Generation or a thing, if you know what I mean. Much love to you as well, Alex. Thank you for popping on in the live motherfucking chat right now. I just mean that instead of it being in a very, not fast-paced, but a generalized, quick focused way that a 90s television show was, quick packaged product where you get all the information you need. It still tells a complete story in these episodes or 2-part episodes, but it's short and to the point. The way television storytelling is now, everything is a mini-series. And in a mini-series, you can take something that could be an hour story or a 2-part story or a 2-hour story and stretch it out to 6 or 7 episodes or 10 episodes. And that's what a lot of these new shows are to me. And that's not a bad thing, but they're all mini-series essentially. And with Picard, the story, the episode is the whole season. So it's almost Picard season 1. I will judge it against yesterday's Enterprise, against Chain of Command, against Decedent or whatever. I don't know what the fuck the name of that episode is. In the final season, I'm not really good with names. Okay, so she's got a man on the floor, and we also get a little bit more exposition about the Romulan that's having sex with Data's other daughter, that he's not to be trusted too. So we're already setting up that he might have his own agenda in this situation, because the Starfleet commander, the Vulcan commander, she says she doesn't quite trust this guy already. I mean, maybe it's just a Vulcan Romulan thing, but who knows? Okay, so having donned... Okay, this is when we get into Picard having to ask for help and find a ship on his own. He calls his old frenemy, Raffi, played by Michelle Hurd, who we get a bit of in this episode, and it seems like she'll be more of a part of the next episode and more moving forward, asking for help. Picard is now yelled at by Laris for his stupid plan, which is a funny scene where she implies that he's really motivated by his ego. It is a good scene. They have a lot of good chemistry. I was excited with the potential of them coming with, but they end up being told to stay there. And I also like in this scene how we get Zyban, or whatever his name is, to suggest to Picard that he ask Riker and Geordi and Worf all to go with him on this mission. But Picard says, fuck no, I don't want to put them in this position again. And I like that we at least have that moment where that happens. It's just an important thing to establish there to show, even though part of it doesn't make sense, but it does. Some may argue that it's because of what happened with Data and the events of Nemesis. I say that's bullshit. It's more probably about their name in their place in Starfleet being dragged through the mud with him quitting, and all of their career is so closely tied to Jean-Luc Picard. He doesn't want to put the last nail in the coffin of their careers. I think it more has to do with that than anything to do with anything that happened during Nemesis, particularly, or Data dying. The only reason I say that is because this article that I'm stealing from for a recap suggests that he didn't enlist his friends because of Data's death, and I don't think it's because of that at all. I think it's more because of the Romulan supernova and how Picard reacted post that and post the Mars thing. Okay. So, anyways, he suggests that he needs to get crew, people to protect him, and people that don't like him, and Picard says, I already made the call, and they're going to go, and they're going to stay here and protect the vineyard and take it over when Picard dies, because he knows he's going to die, and there's all of this shit littering through this whole episode. Then after that, we see one more meeting with Narek and the hologram of Rizzo, who's actually Narek's sister and the person behind all the secret surveillance of Soji and the artifact, the Borg cube. Gazing at Narek's unkempt bed, Rizzo's like, oh, you've been on top of it because you've been doing it, and asks if the artifact has given up the location of its fellow abominations, meaning the orders involving finding the Borg. So here we get into more of the established spoon-fed where I think the season is going to go. And don't mind some of my language here. I definitely like it, but I think, again, it's calling it shots a little bit, and I would love for it to send me in a couple of different directions and surprise me a little bit instead of presenting to me, you know? Anyways, so Rizzo warns Narek that its undercover approach doesn't get them intel. By the time she arrives on the Borg cube, they'll try her method instead, which is going to be torturing an android, see, because that's going to work, yeah. Sure, I don't really like your character. I won't lie, you're the first character I don't like. I keep walking around it. I don't like Rizzo so far. Rizzo needs to go back to Greece. Is that the right thing? Is Rizzo in Greece? Rizzo's not in Greece? What am I thinking about? Thinking of something else. Okay, what do you got here down at the bottom? That's the end of our episode. The captain's log, according to Entertainment Weekly. Let's see. The real world, according to Raffi's home in California, is Vasquez Rocks, a site used by numerous Star Trek locales throughout the franchise. I believe that's where Kirk fought the Gorn. I don't know. Okay, there's no sign of Picard's trusty Pitbull number 1 in this episode. That's a shame. Watching Picard go rogue, it's hard not to be reminded of his legendary predecessor, Captain James T. Kirk. I wasn't thinking about Kirk at all in this episode, funny enough. And I think that's a reach. It'll be interesting to see if we learn more about Picard's seemingly fatal condition, especially since Picard's already been renewed for season 2. Okay, so we don't know how long it's going to take for the neuromotic syndrome to kick in. It could take a while. They've established that it's going to take years for him to putter out. Speaking for example, and I don't want to get too personal, but I'm always personal, so I don't give a fuck here. And it's the end of the podcast. If you made it this far, you might as well get personal. My mother had not a fatal stroke because she didn't die from it, but it did ultimately kill her eventually. But she had a gigantic stroke or multiple strokes at once and developed vascular dementia. And at first they said this could kill you in a month or or a few months you could have to live, or they told us that as her mind started to go. And ultimately she lasted, I think it was another 7-8 years of deterioration before finally her body gave up. And I'm not saying that to feel bad, or I'm saying that in the sense of when you deal with a condition like this. I think it was not on purpose that the doctor established that Picard's body and everything else is healthy. If it's just his mind that goes, he's going to have to wait for his body to catch up to that. And that could be years of torture. That's ultimately why I think the doctor let him go into space and hoped that the mission was dangerous and he would die a quick death. Because what he's going to deal with is in people that care about him, trying to keep him alive and trying to it's Picard's got a long, painful way to go. So I think in a season 2 you could just have the time be not too long. You could also have something to do with which would be a cheat, but it would be an interesting way of going. What if somehow the Borg come back into it and they Why can't I think of the assimilate? Yeah, I couldn't think of the word assimilate there. My brain's not assimilating back to thinking on my feet, I guess. And the Borg assimilate him right now. Could Borg tech correct this finite flaw in his brain and give him a established life? If he became Locutus of Borg again, would that mean he would be alive and he can somehow become something closer to what 7 of 9 is rather than what Picard is, and have a little bit more Borg tech in him that protects him from the Neurotic Syndrome? Could something like that possibly happen? We'll see. 1-800-DREW. Great to see you, buddy. And for no apparent reason that had to do with you being here, I am going to call this a live stream. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for having some patience with me with some actual technical difficulties tonight and me not quite feeling 1,100% tonight. And thank you to Joe Dirty Locks for getting with me earlier for a half an hour podcast within a podcast within a podcast. So I'm very excited to see where Picard goes this season. I'll be back, as I said, after every episode of Picard doing some sort of podcast, either the day the episode airs, like right after it in the afternoon on the day the episode airs, or on Sunday nights. But I'm also going to try to get out here as much as possible on Sunday nights around this time, even just for a little while if I don't go for a full crazy long podcast. But time to take the Sunday night silliness back and start preparing. But I will be back next week at some point to talk about, or this week again, to talk about the episode of Picard. And yeah. And if for ever any reason I don't make a week because too much work or life shit comes up or some technical real life difficulties pop up, then the following week we'll talk about 2 episodes. Picard's almost one of those shows similar to when Joe and I did Jessica Jones a couple of years ago or did some of the other Netflix series. I wouldn't mind talking about 2 episodes of Picard at once, but I don't want to wait 2 weeks to do podcasts on it. But it is that kind of show because, again, I don't want to take away something Carmine said earlier. For someone that's not bathed in Star Trek nostalgia and love like I am, watching this show week to week and hoping for every episode to entertain you on its own, it might not have enough in there, but it would for a binge watch. That's why I say if you're not a huge, incredible Star Trek fan, even if you like it and you're familiar with it, I would suggest you wait on CBS All Access. You wait for the season of Picard to be done. I give you the same advice I give you for Mandalorian, and I enjoyed The Mandalorian a lot. Picard is very good. I'm going to be watching it week to week and doing recaps on it. And I would have, if I wasn't doing the play, I would have done it for Mandalorian too. But both shows, I would suggest the same thing. Wait for the whole season to be aired, or at least before the last episode. Get CBS All Access or Disney Plus on your own and get a free trial for a month, which I believe you can get on both when you first sign up, or even with Disney Plus, you can get it free for a year if you're like a Verizon member or with some weird promotion or something. I think you have to have, I'm not getting paid for mentioning this. You have to, I think if you have any of their unlimited plans, you can get Disney Plus for a year. But whatever. My point is, wait for the season to come out, binge watch it, cancel. Excuse me. Watch the whole thing in your free month, or just pirate the shit out of it. One or the other works. But these aren't shows you have to watch week to week. And in fact, I think it hurts the experience to a certain extent because these shows aren't built, and I've said this 5 different times tonight, and I'll say it again because I think it's the truth, that these shows aren't built for you to watch week to week. They just aren't. There's not enough in it. You're getting what could be in Sopranos age and an Oz age of a television series, what could be 5 minutes of screen time over the course of a whole episode. And people can say, you're exaggerating. I don't know. In the information that we get in this episode, really, we could have had everything established. These first 2 episodes could have been 1 episode edited in the correct way. It's a different kind of series. I'm not saying I like that better. I'm just saying if this was a week-to-week show, it would be edited in a very different way. And people say, well, but Phil, it does come out week to week. I know, that's not what I'm saying. Somewhere within all of that, I'm making sense to myself. And I guess that's what matters. So everybody, if you at all enjoyed this silliness, please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, share it with a friend. And help spread the word about us as I'm trying to claw my way back in to doing this again here and there, dropping duties when I can. Can't wait to catch up. I feel like after the last whirlwind of a couple of months, getting back into my normal stretch is a little weird. It's a little awkward. And I'm not saying anything I was doing was more important or less important or whatever, but when you're in a certain world or in a certain circle of doing things, and then that thing just ends, and then you're back to where you were right before there, where you're like, I have no time for anything, and then you're like, I had time for all this shit, and now I'm back in that other time. I'm like, how'd I have that time, and where the fuck did the time go, and where the fuck did my brain go? I don't know, I'm fucking scatterbrained right now. And you guys are getting a part of it. That's what I love about doing this podcast and doing this discussion, because as much as it's about Captain Picard, it's about you guys being my therapists for free. So thank you guys. Love you. Talk to you guys next time. Peace. End it.